The joke's on anybody who's not hiring moms, because our ability to get the job done in less time with more vision and more patience and more empathy and more organization and just better leadership skills, it's second to none.
All right, moms, get ready, because I am going to be singing your praises and tooting your horns in this episode. Welcome, everybody, to the Paula Ferris Show. I am your host, Paula. It is Women's History Month. And just a reminder, we capped our series on relationships and dating last week. John, my husband, joined me for a conversation about how to keep it spicy with your partner. And if you haven't listened to that episode, I encourage you to either watch it on YouTube or listen to it with your partner. I've been getting some incredible messages from some of you sliding into my DMs, giving me feedback, and I'm here for it. But if you haven't listened to that episode, I highly encourage you to do so. Okay, so it's Women's History Month, and I'm going to be devoting this month to some issues and guests and topics that I want to really shine a light on. So we have the very funny Instagram influencer, Peaches and Diesel, who's going to be joining me. And she talks about menopause and midlife and being an empty nester and Gen X. And then influencer Paige Cannell is going to join me to talk about the mental load. You may have seen her content on Instagram. Her handle is She Is a Page Turner, but she talks all about the mental load and how true partnership will benefit the relationship. Really important conversations, really great guests, and really important topics that I'm excited to shine a light on. But back to this week and my earlier statement about moms being awesome. You heard that soundbite. The joke is on anybody who isn't hiring moms. Moms, I'm going to be singing your praises because I'm in conversation with the co-founder of Chamber of Mothers, Erin Erenberg. Now, if you're not familiar with Chamber of Mothers, they are a non-partisan organization that is doing the work. They are boots on the ground. They are in DC fighting for three main pillars. Number one, paid family leave. Number two, access to affordable and quality childcare. And number three, improved maternal health. Now, amongst Republicans and Democrats, this is a very popular issue. I believe it has an 84% approval rating. This should not be a politicized issue. And whether you're a mom or maybe you're a dad or a grandparent or just somebody who really values families, this conversation is so important. Erin's going to talk about how motherhood changed her and changes us for the better, why we need support, and stick around for my takeaways about why we should not have to choose between kids and career in this country. Also, you guys know I talk about my personal newsletter a lot. You can sign up for it at paulaferrisofficial.com. It's an authentic look into my life, a sneak peek into this podcast and what's coming up. I do a lot of fun giveaways, but I also am the founder of Carry Media. That's Carry. I want to help carry the load for working moms. And we have a weekly newsletter. It's free. It's for and by working moms. It's called the Carry All. And within the Carry All, this whole month, I'm going to be giving away 5 copies each week of my book, You Don't Have to Carry It All, Ditch the Mom Guilt and Find a Better Way Forward. You can sign up for that newsletter at carrymedia.com. And I'll have the links to all of this in the show notes as well. But without further ado, here's our friend Erin Erenberg, the co-founder of Chamber of Mothers, and why she's confident about the fight for paid family leave. I love to be in conversation with people, Erin, and I guess you could say I'm nosy, but I'm just super curious, and I'm so excited to get to know you. You're a new friend. We're meeting for the very first time. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. And we just the backstory, we just found out we're both from the Midwest originally. And now we both live in South Carolina, different parts of the state. We both have 3 kids. So
yes, lived in big cities.
Yes. And we both have this burning passion for mothers and to make sure that motherhood is celebrated and supported and not scrutinized. So Erin, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be with you today.
Oh, okay. So Erin, you are the co-founder of Chamber of Mothers, which is a nonpartisan organization. You're also a lawyer, so you got your hands in a lot of different things. But tell us a little bit about Chamber of Mothers. And, my philosophy as the founder of Carry, which advocates for working moms and families, is, rising tides lift all boats. The more organizations, whether they're for-profit or not-for-profit organizations that are beating the drum for mothers and families, the better. And so that's what I want to do today, is to give you the mic and make sure that motherhood is celebrated and supported and not scrutinized. So tell us about Chamber of Mothers, how it got started back in 2021.
Thanks for the opportunity to do so. And I agree with you. I'm right here with you. The way I got into even advocating for mothers is that I didn't spend a lot of time growing up or even as a young woman thinking about being a mother. I was very ambitious. Had my sights just set on what was I going to accomplish next. Then I found myself 3 decades into womanhood. I was 33 when I had our first baby.
Right.
And really shocked at how little cultural conversation, let alone support, this was in 2012, there was around the massive revolution that happens to a woman's brain, body, ambition, and relationships the very second she gives birth to a baby and becomes a mother. I mean, it's the biggest hormone shift that any living being goes through at any time in its life cycle.
Right.
And just think about that sentence. And there is really not much conversation about it. I just remember thinking, wow, I consider myself somebody that takes in a lot of information, and I had a lot of information about even how to give birth, right? I had a point of view on how to give birth, and I gave birth with the Bradley method, and my husband was my coach and all this stuff. And then I suddenly am a mom, and I met this new version of myself that was always there, of course, but I hadn't encountered before. Just a more patient, calm, relaxed, nurturing, grounded, slower version of myself. And I quite liked this part of me. It was more inviting than this, like, I'd just been sort of groomed to be this hard charging, fast thinking, fast communicating person. You know, I'm trained as a lawyer. And before that, you know, went to a great undergrad and was working as an agent at one point. So everything was like, move, do.
Yes.
And I just loved who I encountered in myself when I became a mother. And so something in me changed and shifted back in 2012. And I knew I wanted to take all the experiences that I had, the education I had, the information I had, and do something to help other American moms. And so what that ended up being is that I started looking at what's missing from a system standpoint. What do mothers here in the U.S. not have that we ought to have, that other countries provide just de rigueur? Like they just give this to every mom. And really, the number one thing that I was thinking about at the time was paid family medical leave. And that was also on my mind because a former colleague of mine was working for an organization, Paid Leave US, that was fighting for paid family medical leave. I got invited into a White House briefing on Biden's American Family Rescue Plan, which included paid family medical leave for all individuals. It included childcare subsidies, and it really just provided care, what we now call care infrastructure. So I started looking at that. And the biggest thing that hit me was a lot of us who are providing products and services and resources to moms are, without meaning to, sending the message to moms that if she just had something outside herself, if she added one more resource, one more product, one different point of view, things would be better. And what we're telling her is that she's the problem. She's not enough. When in fact, she's everything she needs to be, and she requires more support. We were never meant to mother in isolation. We were never meant to mother alone.
Nope.
And this country leaves us without that basic scaffolding. And so I started to get really fired up. Like, oh my God, what? You know, I had just accepted that I didn't have paid leave and I didn't have childcare, all these things. There are 85 million moms in this country who have between 11 and 15 trillion annual spending power in any given year and control over 85% of household spending decisions. Oh my goodness. If we were to create the Chamber of Mothers, like the Chamber of Commerce, the AARP, even the NRA, these are all affiliation groups where there's a pooled interest, power, and vote. If we were to do that for moms, everything would change. So that was the idea. And it really started with an Instagram post because paid leave was failing. And we saw it go from 12 weeks to 4 weeks to on the cutting room floor. And we were hearing from our communities, women who said things like, I went back to work at 2 weeks postpartum. I was picking and packing boxes. There was blood coming through my jeans. Women who were taking out HELOCs on their homes, so for childcare. So our first post, this really edgy image of two hands forming a womb with a drop of blood, and it said, "We won't build back bleeding." And it caught fire. I mean, we had 10,000 followers, I think, in 2 days, and we were picked up by parents and self. And at the time, we had a big Slack channel, and we were a megaphone from the groups that were already working on these issues for a long time, like Moms Rising, Paid Leave US, Paid Leave for All, and others. And we were getting and spreading the word and really deputizing moms across the country into advocacy. So we are all, you and I are in South Carolina. We have co-founders in Florida, New York, San Diego. We're all over the country, at DC. We were reaching all these moms and they were like, heck yeah, I'm fed up and fired up. And that became one of our taglines. Moms wanted to be in this fight. Our mission statement is uniting mothers as advocates to create a better America. And I think, what a time to think about unity, coming together and thinking about where we all agree. And there's an over 80% approval rating for affordable childcare, paid family medical leave, and improved maternal health outcomes.
Yeah.
And those are our three pillars that we fight for.
Coming together on those three common fronts, what does that look like? Because I know you're doing a lot of advocacy work. You're taking this grassroots movement to Washington, D.C. So how are you actually changing the reality for working moms? Because we talk about this all the time. We talk about it a lot at Carrie, being a working mom should work. But until the systems are set up to support us, until the attitudes change in America, the current attitudes are your kid, your problem, right?
Yes.
You shouldn't have had kids if you knew it was going to be this hard, right?
Yeah.
Until the attitudes change and until there is a lot more support for mothers, for parents, for families in general, we're going to continue to see this decline in us having fewer and fewer kids, which is the reality that is setting in right now. So what are you doing, not just from that grassroots movement? How is your message and your advocacy then getting to Washington? How is it changing the reality for working mothers, for mothers in general and families?
We're taking it to Washington. So we just this year did 6 trips to DC.
Amazing.
And
I'm joining you next time, by the way.
Please do. Oh, we would love that.
I would love it so much.
We intentionally meet with bipartisan, bicameral members of Congress and with agency heads. So, I think we've met now with over 60, we've had 65 unique meetings with members of Congress. And within many of those, we've deepened relationships. And so one of my proudest moments was when Representative Lauren Underwood, who's someone who's a heroine to me and probably to you being from the Midwest, like somebody who is a nurse and involved in care and then just so bright. And she's now representing her district in Congress. She is fighting for improved maternal health outcomes. And so the first time we were invited to the White House, which is super exciting for the Bipartisan Inflation Reduction Act, I saw Representative Lauren Underwood and her back was turned to me and I jogged up to her and then played it cool. I was like, "Oh, hi, Representative Underwood. I'm Erin." Da-da. So that's how it started. I was her stalker. And then it turned into, we have this awesome relationship. So she was wonderful. And she said right then and there, "I'm actually so glad you approached me. This is my job. My job is to represent the American people. I'm all ears. Who are you all? And what do you have to say?" Because I was there with all my co-founders. And so fast forward, we now have this relationship with Representative Underwood's office where she comes to Chamber Mothers and she'll tap me and say, "Erin, we need Chamber Mothers to help us find support for the Momnibus," which is 13 pieces of legislation aimed to make historic investments in maternal health in America. "I need you to find me support on the Senate side, Republican Senate side." And we say, "Okay, I've got it. I've got some ideas. Let's talk to, these members of Congress, these senators," and to be able to have those conversations. So one of our functions in DC has been bridge building. And I think one of the reasons we're good at that is we listen, we're empathetic, we go in and we stand on principle. We know what our cause is. We're loyal to the cause and we're loyal to moms across this country and to their stories. And then from there, we're really listening. We're going in these offices and saying, here's who we are. We now reach between 4 and 50 million moms on a monthly basis, depending on what we're putting out through our messaging channels. And this is what the moms have to say. How are you, member of Congress, working on these things? And how can we be helpful? And it's led to a lot of information that's really helpful. I mean, there's one senator that we met with in a Republican state, and she's a Republican senator, and her office told us that there was a big piece of steel manufacturing that could come to her state, but they really need the workforce, and they don't have the workforce without proper childcare infrastructure.
That's right.
And so
childcare is the number one barrier to women in the workforce.
100%.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's coming up everywhere. And I believe there's a lot of possibility to make progress here because it is absolutely an economic issue. And
100%.
It's a glaring, yes. And it's a glaring error in our free market economics. And you look at places like,
completely agree.
Well, you and I are both in South Carolina. Let's take Charleston, for example. So we have a chapter in Charleston. We now have 35 chapters across the country where these are places where moms come together and they have meetings and they culminate in community action plans. And they're tailored to what's going on locally and at the state level. But then we are also bringing them and bringing their stories to DC. So our Charleston chapter is really connected with the Chamber of Commerce in Charleston because the Chamber of Commerce has a 2040 plan to improve the city and to modernize the city. And one of their 4 pillars is childcare because as Charleston has grown and the economy has burgeoned, they do not even physically have childcare spaces, let alone the workforce. And it's a massive, true infrastructure problem. And so for our Chamber of Mothers to be connecting with an organization as powerful as the Chamber of Commerce and then bringing that story to DC, I mean, to me, that's just a perfect example of what's going on in cities all across the country.
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons we need more moms in leadership so that we can bring this unique voice and vision, but also some of these issues to the forefront. I had a chance to interview Dr. Jennifer Glass. She's a sociologist and the executive director for the Council of Contemporary Families. And she told me, she said, Paula, we have these councils, these economic councils, but we don't have a council on how the family impacts the economy. And she says where we've gone wrong is we haven't made it an economic issue. And it is absolutely an economic issue. You're seeing countries in Asia that are now pouring billions of dollars into their economy to reverse the low birth rates because they made it so difficult on their people to have children. And you were seeing record low birth rates here in America. That's all going to bite us because it's so difficult to have kids here in America. It's so expensive to have children here in America. And that is going to be a huge, that's going to, 10 years from now, I don't even think 10 years from now, we're really going to start reaping those repercussions because our labor force is going to be diminished. We're not going to have a labor force to actually grow our economy. So we're having fewer and fewer and fewer kids, and low birth rates equals economic doom. It's as simple as that. And I'm glad that you guys are making this an economic issue because I think the last thing we need is another partisan issue.
100%.
So if we can make this squarely an economic issue, you invest in families and that's an investment in the economy.
Absolutely.
You can't grow your economy without investing in families, whether it's paid leave or childcare or some sort of subsidies. So I'm hoping that that's the direction that we can go. You said that you're optimistic based on some of the preliminary conversations you're already having. Yes, we have a new administration coming in, but what gives you optimism about what we can do to strengthen and support mothers and give us the support that we need? Why are you optimistic right now?
I'm optimistic for a couple reasons. First of all, the fact that both candidates, really all candidates, because it was Biden included, Biden, Harris, and Trump, and Vance, were all asked questions about childcare, about paid leave, maybe not exactly about maternal health, but especially the childcare issue came up in debates. And there was a huge push for this among mom groups. I love to see that. I know that the incoming administration, we're talking about it. We're talking, and yes, I have my opinions on some of those answers, but I also think even some of the answers I didn't love, they opened the door to start talking about things like friend, family, and neighbor care, right? Child care isn't always at an established care center. It sometimes is grandma, although we're seeing really truly less and less of that. And our, elders need support and care also. It's sometimes, and many times in low income neighborhoods, it's a neighbor, it's a friend, it's a family friend, et cetera. So thinking about this beyond the scope of just care centers, I think is really important. I also, the incoming administration is interested in meeting with Chamber of Mothers because of these issues, because they know, and they know that these are economic issues. And you said it very well. One thing that I would add to that is that there's some conversation, especially online, about framing motherhood and career as a choice. And what we see so much at Chamber of Mothers is that for most American moms, it's actually not. Most moms in this country have to work to live.
Absolutely.
And it's sort of a high class problem. Although I get it. Like I grappled with it too. Every time I had a baby, what do I do? What's the mix of working outside the home and being and then when George got sick, it was the same. Like, should I just scrap everything I'm doing outside the home and care for him and the other two full time? But for most people, that's not even the calculus. Most people have to work to live. They're looking at multiple jobs.
Yeah.
They're really desperate to find childcare. And I don't know if you saw Eve Rodsky's documentary, her Fair Play documentary on the heels of the book. So good. But do you remember the scene where there was a mom who picked produce in a field and she was going to have to leave her newborn with her 5-year-old. And then, this is a person that's going to get, picked up by CPS. And we've seen that's happening too. There's a mom, I think in Georgia, close to us, that the police come. Yes. But these are we have placed parents in a desperate situation. And I say parents, and it's moms who are raising their hands for leaning into care 9 out of 10 times. It's the mom who is saying, I'm going to try to make this work somehow. And this isn't good for anybody. This is not a Republican or Democratic issue. This is about human dignity. And it's not just, one of our board members who is he's in a think tank around childcare. His name is Elliot Haspel, and he writes prolifically about childcare, talks a lot about the other massive piece of this is the first word in childcare, the child. How are we nurturing and caring for and developing the child? You look at countries across the world who see childcare as this beautiful enrichment process and opportunity and education and enrichment and all of the bounty that can bring into a child's life. And we're missing the boat on this. We really are in America. But I do feel hopeful. I know there's interest in doing something. The third reason I'm hopeful is sort of that example I gave around the steel mill. We now know, Republicans and Democrats know, that childcare is a workforce issue and it is an economic issue. And it means you won't get bids for business if you don't have the workforce and you don't have the childcare infrastructure.
That's absolutely. I think the more we can talk about it from an economic perspective, the bigger the wins will be for families. But, some of the statistics that I've seen, you've probably seen these too and heard them, Erin. Again, childcare is the number one barrier to women in the workforce. But we lose $122 billion each year due to the lack of affordable and quality childcare. And I think those go hand in hand. It can't just be quality. It has to be affordable too. And it can't just be affordable. It has to be quality.
100%.
And also, if we would subsidize childcare, just similar to other countries, we would increase our GDP by $1.6 trillion. And you brought up such a great point. Yes, kids or career is very much an American decision. Women here, do you want kids or do you want a career? Because you can't have both, right? Whereas in other countries, this is what has blown me away in so much of my research. In other countries, so many women, they don't have to make that choice, but they have no choice but to work, Erin. And there are so many women here in America too, that absolutely have to work, right? But in other countries, they don't have a choice but to work, but they also take a great amount of pride in working and helping to contribute to the family. But on the other side of that, why they don't have that mom guilt? Why they're not suffering the mom penalty? It's because they have the support and the structure. They have policies in place to support them, to ensure that they feel supported. And they're taking care of the kids. There's not this attitude of your kid, your problem, figure it out. Totally. They have this attitude of I'm my brother's keeper. We're investing in these kids because guess what? kids are our greatest natural resource or they're not. They're either the future of this country or they're not. So it's, again, multifactorial, but it comes to attitudes and policies. And I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing. I'm so grateful.
Well, thank you. And you actually
work.
built a beautiful illustration of something we talk about a lot, which is the illustration you built out in that example really shows that when we have law and policy that prioritizes families' needs, it shifts our culture. It shifts what's
100%.
expected, right? So the reason those women aren't grappling with guilt and aren't, they're not sitting in so much consternation around this is they have these supports from their government, which not only is it there, it's also saying to them, we are happy for you to contribute to the world around you. We expect you to keep contributing to the world around you and care for your child and be an amazing mom. It's not if you leave your child, you're abandoning them and how dare you, or, you're not going to be able to be this ambitious, successful person inside your career once you have a baby. These are the false dichotomies that we have in our country. And it's a result of us not having the law and policy that we need. Therefore, our culture then metabolizes all these lies. And it's hard. And that's where I mean, like circling back to feeling like I was somehow unwittingly giving a message to moms that they were the problem, to suggest like, you should just burn your mom guilt, like write it down and light it up. That doesn't work. That doesn't work.
It sure doesn't.
We are told from the top down and from the sides and every which direction that your purpose is, as soon as you become a mom, is to take care of those babies, but also you're going to have to somehow still be ambitious and somehow make a living. It doesn't add up, but somehow we keep going until we don't, to your point about the birth rate. And let me add to that, the other way that we're cracking as a society is what the Surgeon General put out in his report.
Yes.
Women are physically ill over this. We are suffering from autoimmune conditions, from disease, and it's because of this mental load. It's the stress, it's the anxiety, and also it's like something's not right.
I'm so grateful for the advocacy work that you're doing. I really think that moms need a rebrand. This country, it's, we're the moment where we become a mother, we're projected as counting Cheerios and like, she clearly, she's pulled another direction. She's not committed anymore.
Yeah.
When in reality, I mean, you talked about it earlier, what happened to you. Scientifically, once you become a mom, again, whether the baby grows in your heart or your tummy, you become more empathetic. You are kick-ass. You are efficient. You are productive. You're a visionary. You're a leader. You have more courage. It's insane what motherhood and parenthood does to us. It's a masterclass in leadership. And that's one thing that I would love to see shift is just the way that we view parenthood and motherhood, because there's the perception of motherhood and parenthood. Oh, she's counting Cheerios. She's in her yoga pants. She's not committed anymore. That's the perception. But the reality is a 180. The reality is we just became the ideal employee.
Absolutely.
The reality, I mean, I want to work on this. Like, let's rebrand motherhood. Because we desperately need a rebrand here in America. I mean,
I'm so with you. So we talk in threes a lot. So the way we advocate is on the federal level, in community through our local chapters. And then our third pillar is narrative shift. Our narrative shift pillar, in our earliest days, we talked a lot about rebranding motherhood to the point that we found out, and she's actually a friend of ours and a friend of the movement too. There's an amazing woman, Tina Cartwright, who has an Instagram account called Rebranding Motherhood, and you should talk to her. But she's doing an amazing job with that. Yeah, but we would, you talk about counting Cheerios. I always think about what P&G has done to moms. I remember like during the Olympics, there were a long time ago when I was growing up, when I was in high school in the 90s, there were these commercials that were like, we're for moms. And all the moms they were showing were like folding socks, packing lunches, making breakfast. And our culture is full of that imagery. When in fact, to your point, yes, we are more capable. We can juice more out of an hour than we juiced out of 3 hours before. There's a lot of conversation around executive function.
Mm-hmm.
I do not know a single mom that doesn't have grade A executive function. Even those moms who say that they suffer with neurodivergence and executive function is not their jam. Yes, they can do it better than most non-moms I know, because we have to every day between like the many emails from school. And if you have multiple kids like you and I do, the emails I get, the different classes, the extracurriculars they have after school. What time do you have to make dinner in order to be at these places? How do you be 3 places at once if your kids are interested in 3 things? How do you help your 6th grader study for pre-algebra? I mean, we are in executive function almost all the time, and having to organize a vast array of varying information, then figure out how to code switch on a dime, know how to prioritize, know how to build block schedules and shift, and to, set our kids up with a craft while we make dinner and help another kid with homework. We're doing this all the time. And by the way, we shouldn't have to do it all. But to your point of our capability, the joke's on anybody who's not hiring moms, because our ability to get the job done in less time with more vision and more patience and more empathy and more organization and just better leadership skills, it's second to none.
Yes, it really is. Like, parenthood is a masterclass in leadership. And the people that don't see that are missing out on a loyal, productive, and efficient employee. We are the best employees when we're well supported. And when we don't, and this is one area of the feminist movement that I think forgot, was home life and family life, right? Mm-hmm. But like, when we are well supported and we are valued for what we bring to the table, and when motherhood is celebrated and it's not scrutinized, when we are supported as mothers first, there's you will not find a better employee.
Absolutely.
Loyal, from a loyalty perspective, from a production perspective, from an efficiency perspective. Absolutely. And again, the reality is most moms have to work. I am at a privileged point in my life. My husband and I both work from home. I left TV News. I founded Carrie, but I'm in a position where, and I'm blessed, I work from home and I'm a founder, an entrepreneur, and I can do that. I realize it, for me, is very much a privilege, right? And most women, like you said, are working 1 or 2 jobs. They don't have a choice but to work. And if we keep paying moms less and valuing them less and scrutinizing them more, we'll continue these cycles of poverty. And we win as a society when the family wins. That's the bottom line. That's what's most important. When the family wins, we all win. Yeah. So I love the work that you're doing, and I'm really going to take you up on it. I'm going to join your caravan.
Oh my goodness.
And go to Washington.
Love that.
The thought of just kind of like ruffling some feathers and stirring it up gets me going.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And it's a great feeling. And it's a great feeling to walk in there with the power of 85 million moms against your back and know that what we're fighting for is really, it's over 80% approval rating across all 3 of these issues. And I really think that 20% is just a matter of like more information. But to be able to go in there and say, we are talking to between 4 and 50 million moms every month. This is how big the community is. These are all the states where we are. And this is what moms need in order to be the workforce that you need, in order to, build the family values and the structure. And you want to value life after birth. This is what it looks like. It is. It's really fulfilling. And you also realize that, and this, you probably feel this too, because you worked in media and in entertainment. It's like I've worked around and with so many celebrities, we would always call them talent in LA. And you realize that everyone is just a human being, human being with human problems and differing amounts of money and resources and staff, but human beings at the same time. And it's a version of that in DC. These are just folks who are human beings with human problems, and being able to just connect eye to eye and figure out what makes them tick and see where you agree. There's part of me, and by the way, to everything we've said about what a mom is capable of, who better than a mom who's negotiating with tiny terrorists all day,
Oh my gosh,
sometimes
we're
in
like
toddlers'
negotiators.
years.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You want something done, you
Well
give it to
suited
a
to do
mom.
this.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
we just get it done. Moms just get it done.
We do.
We'll wrap it up, but Erin, I also think what's really important is that we invite men into this fight. With
Yes.
any movement, yes, mothers, we get it done. Okay. If you want something done, you give it to a mom. But I think in any fight, in any arena where there was a great movement going on, you needed allies that didn't look like you, right? So
Right.
how can we effectively invite men into the conversation when they've also been dealing with their own set of, toxic messages of be a real man or be a good man or you're only as good as your paycheck. So like men they've been told a lot of lies too, but how can we effectively invite them into this conversation when they already kind of enter it feeling a little uncomfortable? Because we can't do it without men in the fight, without men.
I mean, I wish men were doing it for
Mhm.
us. Number one, I wish, it's our friends at Vote Mama put out this great report, and one of it was that there are more men named John in the Senate than there are mothers, full stop, right?
Sorry,
So
my husband's
men,
name's John. Sir, my husband's
right,
name's John. So that was
John,
funny.
get it, John. You should run for Congress. There's a lot of room for you. Um, but no, it's true that like men en masse, and speaking generally, have not done it. They have not prioritized these issues. That being said, they are not women's issues, right? So on one hand, it feels very personal, and they are women's issues in the sense that we still have the motherhood penalty and, with every baby you make less money. So it does really feel like this is the last horizon for women's equality and the last real bastion of feminism. But at the same time, what you illustrated is that these are everybody's problem and everyone suffers from it. And I think one of the lies that men have been told is that community and relationship is not as manly, that like that's like a soft skill, quote unquote. These are for women. And one of the saddest things, I listened to one of Elise Lonen's Pulling the Thread conversations, and she was talking about like imagine a world where you don't have a friend to talk to about all of the different things that you go through. And like, that's what most men deal with. Like they're doing so much in isolation. And so we have to recognize that and realize that there are a lot of men that they're suffering at the hands of not having these social supports. And that's where it's everybody's issue, right? And care is not gendered, et cetera. And so to the specific question of how can we involve them? Number one, there are some incredible men already carrying the load. One of them is Charles Johnson of For Kira for Moms. His wife, Kira, died in childbirth completely avoidably. She was a radiant woman and she died having her second baby, and Charles had to go home to I think his first baby was just a little toddler, and he had to go home and say, Mom, he's not coming home. He has taken that awful story, and there are no words for what he's gone through, and he fights for change. So one of the pieces of the Momnibus is the Kira Johnson Act in his wife's name. Charles is on fire. So supporting his work, bringing him in, there's Fathering Together. There are a lot of great groups. We invite men onto our board. We have a number of men who sit on our board, and their point of view is really important. So many members of Congress, by the way, that we're dealing with, because see above, all the Johns
are all men,
and they care about this deeply. Yes, it's not dividing. It's not saying men over here, women over there. It's inviting in and saying, hey, we need your help. And this is going to serve all of us. And also looking to the folks who already do care and making sure that we march alongside together.
That's so good. I just love it. There's so much more we can do together. And really, I'm very anxious to hear how your meetings are going to go.
Thank you.
In Q1, but I am going to hop on your caravan. So we're going to have a conversation after this, because I really do want to start rolling my sleeves up and use the research and knowledge I have and the voice that I have to, change the game for families. So however I can.
Well, we appreciate you doing that. And I would just say to anybody listening who's interested in learning more, you can right now on your phone follow @Chamber of Mothers on Instagram. That's where We put a lot of information out. You can also go to chamberofmothers.com and join our mailing list for a deeper dive on what we do and to find out how to join a local chapter.
Amazing. Well, Erin, you're doing great work, and
thank you so much.
You are
Paula.
a great mom.
Oh, thank you, Paula. You are too. We all need to hear that.
Yeah, thank you. And I can't wait to tip a few back with you. So
I know that'll be awesome.
That'll be wonderful. And a big thanks to Erin Erenberg from the Chamber of Mothers for joining me in conversation. My takeaways in just a second, as well as why I think it's a farce that we have to choose between kids and career in this country. I think we should be able to have it all. More on that in just a second, but I'll have links to everything in the show notes. Links to my personal newsletter, paulaferrisofficial.com, which goes out every 2 weeks. Links to The Carry-All, which is a weekly newsletter by and for working moms. It's free. And again, I said throughout March, I'm giving away 5 copies of my book, You Don't Have to Carry It All, Ditch the Mom Guilt and Find a Better Way Forward, only in The Carry-All. And I'll have links to the Chamber of Mothers so you can learn more about their organization and also how you can get involved. All right, I think one of my biggest takeaways, I'm pretty optimistic about the fight for paid family leave. When Erin said that their 3 pillars are paid family leave and improved maternal health and access to quality, affordable childcare, and that those have incredible support, an 83% approval rating, that was great to hear. The fact that she's been able to get bipartisan support and continues to do so, we don't always hear that narrative played out in the media, do we? So it's encouraging to hear from somebody boots on the ground that there are good things happening. And I'm going to keep you posted as to what Chamber of Mothers is doing and all the good things that are happening around this conversation, as well as maybe some of the more disappointing things that are happening around this conversation. I'll make sure to keep you posted on all of that right here on this podcast. Okay, I need to go off for just a hot second about the premise in this country that you can't have it all at the same time and that you do have to choose between kids and career. That is a very real reality for women. We have to choose between kids and career. We can't have it all. There's a lot to deconstruct here, but I will just say this. It's not like that in most other countries. Women don't have to choose between kids and career. In fact, they take a great deal of pride in their work outside of the home, their paid labor, and contributing financially to the home. They don't feel mom guilt, but on the other side of that, and here's where it's really different, they get a lot of support from their community and from the policymakers. There are policies that support families, whether it's subsidized childcare or it's paid family leave or it's early childhood education. And there are community attitudes and just societal attitudes and narratives that are totally different. I mean, here in this country, Erin and I referenced it in the conversation. It's basically your kid, your problem. If you knew it was going to be this hard, you shouldn't have had kids. Whereas in other countries, the attitudes are different. The attitudes are, I am my brother's keeper. These children are the future of this country. They are our greatest natural resource. So you see, right off the bat, there's a lot of support. It's not like that here in America. And if you want to go really deep, I talk all about it in my book, You Don't Have to Carry It All. And again, 5 winners each week throughout the month of March. Okay, off my soapbox. I hope you really enjoyed this conversation. Again, we've got some great conversations, incredible guests and topics coming up this month, including next week. I mentioned Peaches and Diesel talking about menopause, midlife, empty nesting, and Gen X. We're going to keep talking about it, and I'll see you right here next week. Bye-bye. I know you guys thought you were done with me, but not quite yet. I have one more thing to tell you about. If you're watching on YouTube or you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, don't forget to subscribe to the show. I don't want you to miss a single beat or a single conversation. And remember, my DMs are always open. Tell me what you want to talk about.